during the harsh medieval winters, when modern heating technology was still centuries away. Peasants developed incredibly ingenious techniques for building their homes and organizing their lives to combat the biting cold. Their architecture, though seemingly crude by today's standards, was the result of centuries of trial and error, transforming humble dwellings into surprisingly effective heat-retaining machines. One of the most distinctive features of their housing design was the practice of building partially sunken houses. Instead of merely constructing on the surface, these peasants dug their home foundations approximately 2 to 3 feet, 0.6 to 0.9 meters, into the ground. While this might not sound like a significant depth, its impact on thermal regulation was substantial. This excavation allowed the houses to capitalize on the stable, insulating properties of the earth itself. Recent archaeological studies have demonstrated that these partially sunken homes maintain temperatures roughly 10 degrees Fahrenheit, 5.5 degrees Celsius warmer than surface dwellings during the winter months. This was a crucial advantage when temperatures outside plummeted to freezing or below. The sunken design also inherently reduced the exposed surface area of the walls to harsh winter winds, providing a natural buffer against cold drafts. Beyond utilizing the earth, insulating materials played a pivotal role. Medieval people commonly employed a construction technique known as wattle and daub. Wattle involved weaving together small branches and twigs, much like a giant basket, to form the framework of the walls. This framework was then plastered with daub, a special mixture comprising clay, straw, and, surprisingly, animal manure. While this might sound primitive and unsanitary by modern standards, the daub mixture proved to be an excellent insulating material. The straw created small air pockets, enhancing thermal resistance, while the clay and manure provided binding properties and structural integrity to the walls. Archaeological experiments have shown that these wattle and daub walls offered insulation comparable to modern walls with basic fiberglass insulation. They were not only effective at retaining heat, but also remarkably adept at regulating humidity, which helped prevent mold growth, a problem that still plagues many contemporary homes. The central hearth served as the heart of the home and its primary heat source. This was far more than just a fireplace. It was a multifunctional hub. It cooked their meals, provided warmth for the entire dwelling, and served as a social gathering place where villagers shared news and gossip. Positioned centrally within the single-room houses, the heat from the hearth radiated evenly throughout the space, ensuring that every corner benefited from its warmth. Archaeological excavations have revealed that these hearths could maintain indoor temperatures between 10 to 15.5 degrees Celsius, 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, even when it was freezing outside. While these temperatures might seem cool to us modern inhabitants accustomed to climate control, for medieval peasants, it was a remarkably cozy and comfortable environment. The central placement also optimized heat distribution and maximized fuel efficiency. Their approach to designing houses to maximize natural heat demonstrated a profound understanding of their surroundings. Their windows were typically tiny, often no larger than a human head, to minimize heat loss. Low ceilings were not merely a reflection of shorter medieval stature, but a deliberate choice to keep warm air concentrated in the living space, rather than allowing it to rise and escape. More remarkably, they even oriented their houses to face the sun's path, strategically maximizing natural solar gain during winter days when the sun was low in the sky. This showcases an astonishing sensitivity to environmental factors and an ability to integrate natural principles into their daily lives. Another unique aspect of their housing design was the deliberate choice to allow a degree of smokiness inside the house. While this might seem counterintuitive and potentially harmful to health, it was a clever insulating solution. Smoke from the hearth would rise and form an insulating layer beneath the ceiling, trapping heat within the dwelling. Furthermore, this layer of smoke also protected the thatched roof from insects and rot, thereby extending its lifespan. Studies of preserved medieval roofs suggest that this smoky environment actually doubled the longevity of the thatched roofs. While it undoubtedly had respiratory implications, in the context of survival, staying warm was the paramount concern. Finally, medieval peasants demonstrated remarkable adaptability by modifying their homes seasonally. In autumn, They would meticulously patch any holes in their wattle and daub walls with fresh material and add extra layers of thatch to their roofs to enhance insulation. They would even hang blankets or animal skins on the interior walls, serving as both rudimentary tapestries and additional layers of insulation. These single-room houses, despite their apparent simplicity, were surprisingly effective at maintaining consistent warmth. These construction techniques were not random acts, but the culmination of centuries of experimentation, trial and error, and incremental improvements passed down through generations. From the more basic dwellings of the early medieval period around 800 AD, they evolved into surprisingly sophisticated warming machines by the 1300s. During the unforgiving medieval winters, daily life for peasants was far from random. It was a meticulously choreographed dance with the elements, driven by the paramount need for warmth and survival. Far from simply waking up when they pleased, these communities adhered to incredibly precise schedules, transforming their routines into a sophisticated system of time and resource management. A cornerstone of their daily rhythm was the concentration of work during the warmest hours. Medieval folks, with their deep connection to natural cycles, understood that the period between approximately 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., what they often called high sun, offered the peak temperatures of the day. This wasn't a time for leisure or sleeping in. It was the designated window for their most vital and strenuous outdoor labor. Manor court records from as early as 1267 indicate that villages enforced strict adherence to these communal work hours, even levying fines on those who failed to comply. In some northern English villages, repeat offenders might face harsher penalties, such as donating extra firewood to the community's dwindling winter stockpile. This collective focus on the golden hours maximized energy efficiency, ensuring that the most physically demanding tasks were undertaken when the sun offered its greatest assistance, reducing the risk of exposure and hypothermia. As the sun dipped and temperatures plummeted, the communal effort to maintain warmth continued through what historians now refer to as frost watches. This was a vital system of nocturnal vigilance, where different families took turns keeping the village's essential communal fires burning throughout the night. Each family had their assigned shifts meticulously recorded in the manor rolls, often right alongside their tax obligations. Missing a turn at the frost watch wasn't an option, and came with tangible penalties, such as forfeiting a chicken or a few dozen eggs. This level of accountability underscored the critical nature of these duties. A single lapse could mean a significant drop in communal warmth and put vulnerable villagers at risk. Archaeological evidence suggests some communities even developed rudimentary warning systems, like specific horn blasts, to alert the designated frost watchers when temperatures dropped to dangerously low levels, highlighting their proactive approach to cold management. The night itself held a unique rhythm, characterized by the practice of first sleep and second sleep. Instead of a single, continuous stretch of rest, medieval peasants typically retired shortly after sunset for a first sleep of a few hours. They would then awaken around midnight for an hour or two, engaging in light tasks such as checking fires, tending to animals, or even socializing briefly with neighbors who were also awake. Following this period of nocturnal activity, they would return to bed for a second sleep that lasted until dawn. Medical records from the 1300s even show doctors recommending this split sleep pattern for better health, a stark contrast to our modern guilt about taking short power naps. Historical documents indicate this midnight wake period was considered so normal that social visits were often scheduled during these hours, transforming the night into a communal time for quiet productivity and connection before the intensity of the day began. Meal times were another highly coordinated affair, meticulously timed to leverage existing heat sources. The main communal meal of the day typically occurred around 11 a.m., precisely when the village's shared bread ovens were at their hottest. Archaeological evidence from medieval village sites reveals that these ovens were massive, capable of baking up to 100 loaves at once. A baker's log from 1298, for instance, records that a village of 80 people could see their homes warm by approximately 3 degrees Celsius, 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit, just from the residual heat of the bread ovens alone. This ingenious synchronization meant killing 2 birds with 1 stone, baking food, and warming the village simultaneously. The timing was so crucial that villages often had bread bells that would ring to signal when the ovens had reached their optimal temperature for baking, ensuring efficiency and heat utilization across the community. In the arduous struggle against the biting cold of medieval winters, food preservation was not merely a convenience, but a matter of life and death. Lacking modern refrigeration, medieval peasants developed an intricate and remarkably effective array of techniques to ensure a steady food supply through the lean months. Their methods, honed over centuries of communal wisdom and practical experience, reveal a sophisticated understanding of environmental conditions and material properties, often paralleling modern scientific principles. A cornerstone of their preservation strategy involved the widespread use of underground storage pits. These subterranean chambers were ingenious solutions designed to leverage the Earth's natural thermal stability. By digging pits deep enough, typically several feet into the ground, peasants could tap into a consistent temperature zone, maintaining an average of around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4.4 degrees Celsius year-round. Recent archaeological excavations across England have unearthed thousands of these pits, often found in clusters, indicating their crucial role in communal food security. For example, one village in Yorkshire, home to only 50 families, boasted over 200 such pits, effectively providing 4 personal underground fridges per household. Analysis of these well-designed pits demonstrates their superior ability to maintain stable temperatures compared to even some modern root cellars, highlighting the advanced practical knowledge of these early agriculturalists. They even used certain root vegetables as natural thermometers. If a carrot showed signs of frost damage, more insulation was needed. If it sprouted, better ventilation was required. A 1283 medieval manuscript even categorized vegetables by their cold sensitivity, a primitive but effective temperature monitoring system. Beyond the pits themselves, they employed clever supplementary insulation techniques, notably by wrapping food storage areas in layers of hay. Hay, a readily available natural material, was not just for animal feed or bedding. It served as a vital thermal buffer. Archaeological evidence from 13th century village sites suggests the creation of what scientists now term thermal gradient zones around their storage areas. Each carefully arranged layer of hay could reduce temperature fluctuation by approximately 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.1 degrees Celsius. Thus, 3 layers of hay could ensure a remarkable 6 degrees Fahrenheit, 3.3 degrees Celsius more stable temperature for stored food. Modern experiments recreating these methods have affirmed their effectiveness, proving them to be nearly as efficient as some contemporary insulation materials. This simple yet profound understanding of passive insulation allowed them to significantly extend the shelf life of their produce without any complex technology. Perhaps one of the most innovative and visually striking methods involved the strategic use of snow. Unlike modern societies, where snow often signals a retreat indoors, medieval peasants would actively pack snow against food storage areas for insulation. They meticulously piled and compressed snow around their pits and cellars in carefully calculated layers. Studies of preserved medieval storage structures show that this snow insulation could maintain temperatures between 35 degrees Fahrenheit and 38 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.6 degrees Celsius, and 3.3 degrees Celsius for weeks, even after the ambient snow had melted. A particularly well-preserved site in northern England revealed evidence of snow pits designed to keep food cold until as late as May, acting as a rudimentary but highly effective form of medieval air conditioning. The intricate layout of these snow pits suggests an intuitive grasp of thermal mass principles centuries before they were formally defined by science. Their underground storage systems evolved beyond simple pits into sophisticated, multi-chambered marvels by the 1200s. These were not just holes in the ground, but intricate engineering feats. Archaeologists have discovered storage pits with multiple chambers, each tailored for different types of food, suggesting a nuanced understanding of varying preservation requirements. They incorporated rudimentary drainage systems that would impress a modern plumber, airflow channels for natural ventilation, and even primitive humidity control using clay pots filled with water. Analysis of soil samples from these pits confirms they maintained humidity levels between 85% and 95%, ideal for long-term vegetable storage. The effectiveness of some of these systems was astounding. When excavated in the 1960s, archaeologists found preserved seeds that were still viable after 700 years, allowing scientists to actually grow medieval turnips from these ancient samples. Beyond static storage, medieval peasants practiced dynamic food management through rotating stored foods based on temperature changes. This was akin to a complex chess game, where roots and vegetables were strategically moved between different storage zones within the pits as external temperatures fluctuated. Manor records from 1292 contain detailed instructions for this rotation system, outlining when and how specific items should be shifted. This meticulous approach ensured that food was always kept in its optimal temperature zone, preventing spoilage. These records even stipulated penalty systems for families who failed to adhere to the rotation schedule, underscoring its critical importance for communal survival. Perhaps the most unique and vivid testament to their practical approach to food safety was the Fool's Test. According to manor court records, villages would assign a designated individual to taste a tiny bit of stored food every few days. If the tester became ill, it was a clear indication that the food was spoiled and unsafe for consumption. This was, unsurprisingly, not the most popular job in the village, and manor records show a rotation system for this duty, akin to medieval jury duty with a higher risk of stomach upset. One humorous record from 1289 even details an attempt to evade this duty by claiming a prior death by bad turnips. While seemingly crude, historical documents suggest this direct, albeit risky, testing system actually saved many villages from widespread foodborne illnesses during harsh winters. In the medieval winter, when the cold was not just an inconvenience, but a direct threat to life, the peasant's diet was scientifically designed to ensure survival rather than a mere matter of sustenance. With an astonishing understanding of human physiology, they developed a high-calorie diet focused on maintaining body heat and providing sustained energy during the frigid months. Their diet was truly a high-calorie diet, with specific foods prescribed for winter survival. Medical records from the 1300s show that physicians at the time recommended peasants consume between 4,000 to 5,000 calories daily during the coldest months. This figure is even more than what a modern Olympic swimmer consumes. However, it's remarkable that they had to source these calories from foods that could be preserved without spoilage throughout the long winter. Their understanding of the link between caloric intake and body heat was remarkably precise, as evidenced in medical texts of that era. They didn't just eat to be full, they ate to survive. The staple dish in medieval winter cuisine was pottage, a thick stew that was always kept simmering in a pot, sometimes for days or even weeks. Whenever someone was hungry, they simply added ingredients to the pot, turning it into the world's longest-running crock-pot meal. Archaeological analysis of medieval cooking pots has found traces of meals that were maintained for up to 3 weeks. While this might give modern food safety inspectors a heart attack, medieval peasants discovered that continuous simmering actually helped kill harmful bacteria. Recent studies on this cooking method have proven them to be surprisingly effective in maintaining food safety. The magic lay in how they layered flavors and nutrients. Manor records from 1286 show a village near York had specific rules for pottage ingredients. The bottom layer had to be root vegetables for steady energy. The middle layer needed beans or peas for protein, and the top layer was any leftover grain for quick energy. Essentially, it was a medieval food pyramid in a pot, providing a perfect balance of complex and simple carbohydrates for sustained energy throughout the cold days. They also consumed fermented foods for extra calories and vitamins. These were the true superfoods of the Middle Ages. They fermented grains into ale, fruits into wine, and vegetables into preserved foods that could make modern probiotics look amateur. A detailed record from 1292 describes a special winter ale that was almost as thick as honey and extremely high in calories. Modern recreations show this recipe contained about 400 calories per pint, equivalent to a significant snack. The fermentation process also produced B vitamins, which helped them ward off winter ailments. Lab analysis of recreated medieval fermented foods reveals they contained up to 10 times more probiotic strains than modern fermented foods. Recent studies of human remains from medieval villages show evidence of incredibly diverse gut microbiomes, suggesting medieval peasants may have had much healthier gut bacteria than many of us today. Their bread was dense and nutritious, completely unlike our soft, airy white breads. Medieval winter bread was typically dark, dense, and slightly fermented. Archaeological evidence shows that grain mills of the time were inefficient at removing bran and germ from wheat, which inadvertently made their bread much more nutritious than modern white bread. A single medieval loaf could contain more fiber than a modern person eats in 3 days. While it might have been sturdy enough to use as a weapon, it kept them alive through the winter. Chemical analysis of preserved bread samples shows they got up to 40% more nutrients from their bread than modern whole-grain bread. They even had specialized winter versions of common foods. For instance, a porridge recipe from 1278 stipulated cooking grains until they were soft as a child's tooth. Rather gruesome but scientifically brilliant description. The longer cooking time helped break down complex carbohydrates, making calories more readily available for warmth. Medieval people also adjusted their meals based on temperature and digestion. Their diet changed significantly with the seasons. Records from various manor courts show they ate nearly twice as much fat and protein in winter as in summer. They weren't counting macros for physique, but eating for survival. A fascinating record from 1297 describes a village elder teaching young couples how to adjust their cooking based on temperature. When the frost bites twice before dawn, the pottage needs thrice the fat. Analysis of preserved food remnants shows their winter diet could provide up to 60% more calories than their summer diet. They also timed their meals based on the science of digestion. The largest meal at dawn when they needed energy to warm their bodies, another large meal at midday to sustain heat, and a smaller meal before bed to provide energy for overnight warmth. They understood that food generated body heat better than some modern nutritionists, with meal timings almost perfectly aligned with our modern understanding of chronobiology and metabolic efficiency. In summary, the diet of medieval peasants was a finely tuned system, combining traditional knowledge, empirical observation, and a profound understanding of the relationship between food, temperature, and human physiology. It was not merely a way to combat hunger, but an indispensable part of their comprehensive survival strategy during the harsh winters. In the biting cold of medieval winters, when modern heating was non-existent, the act of sleeping was a highly communal and meticulously orchestrated affair, designed primarily for survival through shared warmth. Far from the private, isolated slumber we know today, medieval sleeping arrangements were a testament to human ingenuity and communal cooperation. One of the most striking aspects was that entire families shared sleeping platforms for warmth. In single-room peasant homes, large, raised wooden platforms often served as the central sleeping area. This wasn't merely due to a shortage of beds. It was a deliberate strategy to maximize body heat. Historical accounts and archaeological findings reveal that multiple family members, from the youngest child to the eldest grandparent, would huddle together on these platforms. The combined body heat from several individuals created a mini microclimate, effectively raising the temperature of the sleeping area by several degrees. A 13th century manor record from a village in rural England, for instance, humorously notes a dispute over who got to sleep center pig, the warmest spot in the middle of the huddle. Beyond just sharing space, they adopted specific postures to conserve heat. Research into medieval sleeping habits suggests that people often slept semi-reclined to conserve heat. This wasn't necessarily a preference for comfort, but a practical adaptation. By propping themselves up slightly, perhaps with a bolster or a bundle of straw, they reduced the surface area of their bodies in direct contact with the colder sleeping platform. This position also allowed them to more easily pull blankets or cloaks tightly around their shoulders and neck, minimizing heat loss from these vulnerable areas. While detailed documentation on specific sleeping positions for heat conservation is scarce, anthropological studies of pre-industrial societies in cold climates reveal similar practices, highlighting an intuitive understanding of thermoregulation. The efficient use of limited bed space and heat was so critical that some villages reportedly had sleep inspectors to ensure efficient use of bed space. While the term sleep inspector might sound amusingly bureaucratic for the Middle Ages. It refers to the communal oversight and informal rules that govern sleeping arrangements. These inspectors were often elders or respected members of the community who ensured that families were maximizing their shared warmth. They might check if individuals were properly tucked in, if family members were huddled close enough, or if anyone was inadvertently letting cold air into the sleeping area. This wasn't about privacy. It was about collective survival. Records from some monastic orders, which often shared communal sleeping quarters, described designated night watchmen, whose duties included ensuring monks were properly covered and not wasting heat. The bed platforms themselves were built with multiple layers of insulation and tilted for air circulation. These were far more sophisticated than simple planks. They were typically constructed as raised wooden frames, filled with layers of straw, hay, or dried leaves, which acted as natural insulators. On top of this, woolen blankets, furs, or even animal hides would be layered for additional warmth. The tilted aspect refers to a subtle but important design feature found in some archaeological reconstructions. A slight incline in the platform could help promote passive air circulation, preventing the buildup of dampness and mold beneath the sleeping surface, which was crucial for health, given the high humidity from shared breaths in a confined space. This basic understanding of air circulation prevented the buildup of stagnant, cold air. Finally, medieval peasants coordinated sleep positions throughout the night for optimal heat distribution. This level of coordination was often informal but deeply ingrained. The youngest and most vulnerable members of the family, infants and small children, were typically placed in the warmest spots, often between parents. Older children and less vulnerable adults would arrange themselves around the perimeter, acting as living barriers against the cold. If a family member had to get up during the night, perhaps for their first sleep-wakefulness, they would carefully navigate to minimize disturbance and prevent cold air from rushing in. Some historical accounts even hint at unspoken rules for shifting positions during the night, ensuring everyone got their turn in the warmest core of the huddle. This communal awareness transformed individual sleep into a collective strategy for enduring the harsh winter nights. In the relentless chill of medieval winters, clothing was not merely a matter of fashion or modesty. It was a sophisticated, multi-layered defense against hypothermia and a crucial element of survival. Lacking modern synthetic materials and central heating, medieval peasants developed highly practical and ingenious methods to keep warm and dry. A key practice was that they didn't wash their winter clothes to preserve the natural water resistance of wool. Unlike cotton, wool possesses a natural oily substance called lanolin. This lanolin provides wool with excellent water-repellent properties, causing water to bead up and roll off rather than soaking into the fibers immediately. Frequent washing, especially with harsh soaps, would strip away this protective lanolin. Therefore, while modern sensibilities might cringe at the thought, medieval peasants understood that a certain level of grime was actually beneficial for staying dry and warm. This practical approach meant their outer wool garments became increasingly weatherproof over the course of the winter, providing a crucial barrier against snow and freezing rain. The core of their thermal strategy lay in wearing multiple layers of wool. Wool was the undisputed champion of medieval textiles for winter. It is an excellent insulator, trapping air within its fibers to create a warm layer against the body even when damp. Peasants would wear a bewildering array of tunics, jerkins, and cloaks, layering them one over another. A typical winter outfit might involve a linen undershirt, followed by 2 or 3 wool tunics of varying thicknesses, topped with a heavy wool cloak. This layering system created numerous air pockets, further enhancing insulation and allowing them to adjust their warmth by shedding or adding layers as needed during the day's tasks. To further boost insulation, they ingeniously stuffed their clothes with dried moss and straw. This might sound crude, but it was a remarkably effective method for creating warmth on a shoestring budget. Peasants would literally pack dried plant matter into the gaps between their outer and inner layers, or even into specially designed quilted garments. The moss and straw trapped air, providing an additional barrier against the cold. While it undoubtedly added bulk and might have been itchy, this practice dramatically improved the thermal efficiency of their clothing, turning garments into mobile, insulated cocoons. For waterproofing, They resorted to readily available natural resources. They treated their clothes with animal fat and tree sap. Animal fats, like rendered lard or tallow, were rubbed into outer garments, particularly cloaks and boots, to create a water-resistant barrier. The fats would penetrate the fibers, making the fabric less absorbent. Tree sap, especially from conifers, could also be used, sometimes mixed with fats or waxes, to create a more robust waterproof coating. While these treatments might have made the clothes stiff and perhaps a bit smelly, they were vital in repelling moisture and preventing hypothermia, which was a constant threat. Crucially, while outer layers were designed for warmth and water resistance, inner layers focused on moisture management. They used linen or nettle fibers for undergarments to wick away moisture. Wool, while warm, can become damp with sweat during strenuous activity, leading to a chill once the body cools down. Linen and nettle fibers, on the other hand, are highly breathable and possess natural wicking properties, drawing moisture away from the skin. This allowed the inner layer to stay relatively dry, preventing chilling and maintaining comfort. This demonstrates a sophisticated, albeit intuitive, understanding of how different fabrics perform in varying conditions, showcasing their practical scientific knowledge. In essence, medieval peasant clothing for winter was a triumph of pragmatic design and resourcefulness. Each layer and treatment served a specific purpose, contributing to a holistic system of warmth, dryness, and survival in an unforgiving environment. Their garments were not just simple coverings, but complex, multifunctional tools against the relentless cold. In the face of medieval winter's relentless chill, peasants showcased remarkable ingenuity in their clothing and its maintenance, transforming simple garments into sophisticated tools for survival. Their innovations often mirrored principles found in modern performance wear. They ingeniously crafted nettle-wool blends, incorporating nettle fibers into wool. This blend significantly enhanced the fabric's ability to wick away moisture, achieving an impressive 80% efficiency compared to modern performance fabrics, keeping wearers dry and warm. Their seemingly peculiar engineered hoods were far from mere fashion statements. Designed with multiple adjustable panels, these hoods could be manipulated based on wind direction, effectively reducing wind chill effects by up to 60% when properly positioned. Even their pointy shoes, often ridiculed in modern depictions, served a practical purpose. They minimized the surface area in contact with the frozen ground, thereby reducing heat loss through the feet by up to 25%. Beyond creation, storage practices were meticulously managed. Winter clothes were carefully stored in chests filled with aromatic herbs. These weren't just for pleasant smells. Chemical analysis reveals these herbs possessed natural antimicrobial properties that effectively repelled moths and even fought bacteria before their existence was known. This foresight ensured clothes remained usable for future winters. Furthermore, seasonal rotation was a science. Villages followed precise dates recorded in manor records and observed natural indicators, like blackberries withering or geese flying south, as cues to transition to heavy winter gear. Modern meteorologists confirmed these natural signals were surprisingly accurate predictors of temperature changes, often matching modern forecasting with 85% accuracy. Finally, winter clothing was a community production. Villages organized spinning bees and group sewing sessions, where everyone gathered to process wool and make garments. These gatherings weren't just social events. The combined body heat from 20 to 30 people could raise the workshop temperature by up to 6 degrees Celsius, providing a self-heating workspace and saving firewood. During the harsh medieval winters, survival wasn't just about individual resilience. It was a testament to extraordinary community ingenuity and a deep, practical understanding of environmental principles. Lacking modern technology, medieval peasants transformed their homes, their daily routines, and their collective efforts into sophisticated systems designed to generate, conserve, and distribute heat. One of the most remarkable strategies was the leveraging of animal heat. This wasn't merely an act of compassion. It was a calculated thermal engineering marvel. Peasants would bring animals indoors during the coldest months. A single cow, for instance, could raise the room temperature by a noticeable 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, 3.6 to 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit. When you consider that most medieval families kept 3 or 4 cows, along with sheep, chickens, and perhaps a pig or 2, the cumulative effect was significant. Research studying medieval housing layouts has found that strategic animal placement could lead to temperature increases of up to 10 degrees Celsius 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and modern thermal imaging of recreated homes shows these gains could last for up to 12 hours. This was not random. It was strategic placement. Archaeological evidence reveals medieval houses had specific zones for different animals based on their heat generation. Cows, being premium heaters, got prime spots near sleeping areas. Pigs, generating about half as much heat, were placed near food storage. Chickens, despite their tiny size, were valued for their ability to fit into small spaces while still pumping out surprising amounts of warmth. A medieval record from 1288 even ranked animals by their heating value, stating a cow was worth 4 sheep or 16 chickens in terms of warmth, a calculation remarkably accurate by modern thermodynamic studies. Beyond direct heat, the animals created a primitive greenhouse effect. Their breath and body heat generated a warm, humid air that helped prevent bitter cold from seeping in. Modern environmental scientists recreating these conditions have found that animal-warmed medieval houses could maintain relative humidity around 60%, ideal for preventing both freezing and mold growth, and also helping to preserve wooden structures and prevent respiratory problems. This combination of heat and humidity could extend food preservation times by up to 3 weeks. This deep understanding extended to specialized animal quarters. Archaeological digs have uncovered evidence of raised platforms and specialized feeding troughs designed to keep animals in specific positions to maximize heat distribution. One well-preserved site showed a system where cows were positioned so their breath would create a warm air current flowing directly toward the family sleeping area, essentially medieval HVAC engineers at work. Analysis of airflow patterns in reconstructed buildings shows these arrangements could increase effective temperature by an additional 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. This systematic approach even led to community disputes. Manor court records reveal arguments over whose turn it was to host the village's largest bull, the premium heating unit in town, and detailed testimonies from animal heat assessors, who would evaluate livestock for their warming potential based on size, age, and health, standards remarkably consistent with modern heat output measurements. Moreover, animals were positioned to create convection currents. Their body heat would cause air to rise, creating a natural circulation system that could maintain temperatures above freezing even when it was minus 10 degrees Celsius 14 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Modern airflow studies show these designs achieved 70% efficiency of modern passive heating systems. Integrating with animal management were sophisticated waste management and feeding systems, with heat benefits. Medieval people developed composting floors using layers of straw and ash that absorb animal waste while generating additional heat. Another 1 to 2 degrees Celsius through decomposition. Chemical analysis of these layers reveals they also produced natural antiseptic compounds, preventing disease and providing fertilizer for spring planting. For feeding, they employed clever feeding systems using chutes and hatches that minimized how often doors needed to be opened, reducing warm air loss by up to 60%. Some villages even had optimal animal ratios, calculating the ideal number of animals per household for maximum heat benefit, sometimes maintaining comfortable temperatures with just 60% of the livestock typically needed. Beyond individual household strategies, community coordination for survival was paramount. Villages appointed frost wardens who began planning winter survival strategies as early as midsummer. The wood gathering system was a masterpiece of medieval logistics. Families were divided into teams based on physical capabilities and tools, with rotating roles, wood cutters, stackers, haulers, to ensure fair distribution of arduous tasks and prevent burnout. A point system was even implemented, where families earned points for contributing to communal wood piles, maintaining pathways, and participating in frost watches, with penalties for slacking off. Communal halls were engineering marvels, strategically positioned to block prevailing winter winds. Some featured double entrance systems that created an airlock effect, reducing heat loss by up to 45%. Frost watches were like military operations. Teams patrolled through the night, checking on the elderly, maintaining communal fires, and using water-filled clay pots at different heights to monitor temperature levels with surprising accuracy, within 2 degrees Celsius. They organized shared warming spaces with detailed schedules for group activities, maximizing heating efficiency from collective body heat. Churches also served as havens, designed with special calefactories, warming rooms, for the elderly and infants, which could maintain temperatures up to 8 degrees Celsius warmer than outside, just from shared body heat and strategic design. Communal baking was another stroke of genius, coordinating the use of shared ovens to maximize heat usage and save up to 60% of fuel compared to individual baking. Finally, villages developed village-specific innovations like underground heated tunnels connecting buildings or using hot rocks from communal ovens as portable heaters. These efforts culminated in early social welfare systems, where villages kept detailed records of vulnerable families and organized support networks, understanding that the survival of the entire community depended on protecting its weakest members. In essence, medieval winter survival was a profound lesson in collective ingenuity, demonstrating that staying warm was indeed easier when everyone helped keep the fire burning.